Becky and I have been talking now for a couple of months, and she's going to get to tell you a lot more, but I don't know how many of you are familiar, but she's a writer, has several books out, has gotten to go up to Oshkosh and present those books to the public. So I thought it'd be interesting to hear from her about that career, her flying, and other adventures. So y'all welcome our own member. Becky?
I don't blame you. Hi. I guess I'm going to move the clown horn. Of course, I could put on my hat and be the clown. There we go. Welcome to Oshkosh. I like this hat because this is the last year they gave this model away. Then they went to baseball caps. How boring. Because I used to watch the guys with them stacked up on their head yay high from all the years they went to Oshkosh. But anyway, I'm Becky McLendon in case you haven't noticed. But anyway, I've been a certifiable pilot since 2014, October. A memorable day in my life because I never knew as a retired teacher I'd go learn how to fly airplanes. But I have this husband who said, if we're going anywhere, you need to know what to do in case the goose comes through the windscreen and knocks me for a loop. And that was my, oh my, you know what, moment. Because I was terrified. I did not want to learn how to fly airplanes. But once I started with this gentleman right over here, I was hooked. And in fact, I heard John Hammonds talking to me this morning as I drove over early and crossing the Neches River. He said, if you see that big white wall, turn around. That's IMC conditions. So I recall that. I quoted you as I drove across the bridge there. So anyway. All right. I'm going to pull up my little handy-dandy slideshow. And while I'm going to control it too so I don't get thrown off track. Before I start my talk, I have an announcement from Wendell Dillard. They said that they're tentatively planning the fall fly-in for November 3rd, 4th, and 5th at Critters Lodge. Yeah. So I have passed the news, and they sent their good thoughts, and it's always nice to know you've got pilots in the background who may not fly all the time, but they throw great fly-ins, and they've got your back. So, anyway, I appreciated their thoughts. Okay, covered the career. I guess I call it a career. I am a pilot just like anybody else, thank you very much. And I've met all kinds, and that fly all kinds of airplanes, but we are a family. And that's what I want to drive home, because the whole thing of Oshkosh, join the world's most passionate aviation community. And that's who we are. Even if we put around on the puddles, or we fly clear to Iceland and back like Joe Casey, or Greenland. Anyway, I took this little slide here on the arrival because it always stirs the soul to see the huge sea of airplanes and RV campers already there, and planes coming over one after another by the hundreds, sometimes in a line, and you know you've arrived when you see that site and that field filling up. And they have opened up several more fields, so it's growing. Come on. We're in a slideshow.
You need the lights back on?
No,
Okay.
I'm okay. I'm okay. Slideshow. I'll click that little button. Let's go. It went to sleep, so I have to wake it up again. Anyway, on arrival at Oshkosh, you get to see all of this wonderful stuff. But then we checked into our wonderful lake house. And guess what? It's beautiful. After a 1,500-mile road trip, you kind of want to just stay there. And the flowers that grew all around this place were absolutely beautiful. And I enjoyed my afternoon of repose after beating it across the interstates of Middle America. But the very next day I had to get busy because my first book signing was that afternoon. And everything you do, you truck in and you walk it because they don't do door delivery. Thank goodness the books were already there waiting because you shipped them a month in advance. And they had them set out for me, which helped. So that was my first day at Oshkosh this year. They didn't even have other books set out. It looked like I was the only one selling books that day. I bought me a t-shirt, got to do one a year. It says, don't just stand there, go fly something. You know, even if it's your broom, I just go fly. Anyway, I had to wear that one day and share that little, but here we go. This is my special event at Oshkosh. As I said, each year it gets a little more tasty. We saw this big, huge bird sitting in the middle of Bowling Plaza. And, of course, my illustrious husband goes up and starts talking to the crew. You know, it's just what he does. And they shared histories and stuff, and they said, well, would you like to take a tour of the airplane? He said, I'd really rather not, but would you give my wife a tour? So they made some phone calls to make sure that I was okay and that he was okay, and we got clearance. They hoisted me up the ladder.
You notice the bottom step on that thing, it's about
this high off the ground, and my knee was killing me
And
because
she
I
didn't have
run-
any handles to grab my
no
hold up and
handles.
help.
So they had to elbow me up, and I said, it's okay, guys, just go ahead. But anyway, this was probably what I would call one of my husband's greater gifts to me, to let me see one of these hugely complex military airplanes. And others were getting to go to the ladder, take about a 3-second glimpse of the cockpit, and then right back down. But they took me in and sat me in the left seat of this baby. So anyway, that's what they call it, bad to the B-1er or boner, the B-1 bomber. And it's about 17 to 20 feet off the ground. There's the ladder, and there's the gap down there at the bottom. And there's this little kid climbing up to get his 3-second glimpse. But I found out when I sat down, it's got instruments. I found all 6 of mine. Right there, they look just like mine. I was just really impressed. But then they had a few more. All over the front and all over the ceiling and on either side. And I'm going, whoa. And the guy sat next to me in the right seat. He was doing his checks. Then they did the APU checks. Started them up for me and said, grab that. And so I grabbed the stick, and each movement I made with the stick, you could feel that airplane vibrating and turning and lifting and just the wings moving. It was awesome. And I thought, oh my gosh. So, of course, I kept wanting to be reassured it wasn't going to take off for me. But I had to get that selfie. Left seat. B-1 bomber. And that's what it looks like out the windscreen. A little bit up above all the people. And I kind of joked and said, I've already yelled clear, why are you still on the runway? You know, but it was quite an adventure. I got 30 minutes in that thing.
You log it?
I logged it, baby. It's in there, every little detail. So, anyway, that was a new type rating, you know, that I'm working on. Here is our 2 B-29s. We've only had one up until this year. Doc made his premiere. And I can't remember, is that a B-17 bringing them in? Or they were escorted in. My son got this picture, so I didn't get a lot of the details. But that was an exciting sight to see these two guys in the sky together. They were beautiful. And that rumble is unmistakable. So I took a few pictures of them. Next one. We got to tour this little jewel. The KC-135. Sound familiar, Mr. Hammonds?
Yeah.
Okay. So, it was really good. The year before, they weren't giving tours of it, but this year they were allowing the public to go in. And John said he was quite familiar with this site. Like, what, 10,000 hours or more?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And it's a beautiful aircraft, and our long-distance pilots are very dependent on these guys because they're the ones with the fuel. And it's just a welcome sight. Then, of course, you have your afternoon air shows, and I love these huge formations that go across, you know. You even get them at our lake thing where we rent, because you can sit on the deck and listen to them and see them go over. It's really kind of neat. But the highlight of all the air shows, Blue Angels. I'm sorry they're so little, but they're fast, and you can't get your camera focused in time to catch them close up. But they put on quite a show for us, and I said all you have to do is just follow white, and that's where they are. They went on and on and on. It was about an hour show. And then they put on another one, and we got to see it from the lake. It was great. So. And we always have to spend a little time at the shrine. You know, this is the Brown Arch. It's where you have your bricks, your memorials, and you get to read the new editions and things like that. And you can clearly see this is an international event. I was joking with Linda. I said, I always get in front of Portuguese people in lines when we're waiting for buses and things, and they're back there, blah, 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 and I just, you know, watch what you say, 'cause, you know. But it's fun. They have an international section where all the different countries can meet together, have coffee, and things like that. It's a extremely dynamic thing. Other things to do in Oshkosh, believe it or not, besides watch airplanes. We discovered this place, Shettle Sales, and they make art out of old equipment. They weld it together, and it's the most eclectic display. And I will not bore you with the 500 pictures I took, but Tom made a new friend there. Inside are the most interesting little props and critters and giant crawfish and just all kinds of stuff. You feel like Alice in Wonderland when you go through there. But that's Tom's new friend. And then we went for a drive through Door County, and that was another 500 or 600 pictures with flowers, barns and fields and lighthouses. So anyway, plenty to do in Oshkosh. And of course, you have to eat at Artie and Ed's at least once. And sometimes you have a 2-hour wait in line to get there to get your hot dog or whatever, or your fried cheese curds. But it's fun. And it's really fun to go there. And just, I love the sky riding, but that was my best ending there. Best friends, best memories are found right here.
Pretty good.
Then on to Indiana. And there's a story about this, and there's where I'm coming. And yeah, well, that's all we did was sit around and eat ice cream, milkshakes and sundaes. But in Oshkosh 2016, we met a gentleman at the hot dog stand. You know, they've got 1,000 concession stands there. And he was sitting there, and we asked if we could join him at the table. Oh, sure, come on. He introduced himself and started telling his story and how many of y'all remember this edition of the AOPA magazine with the Twin Beach on the cover? Mike Sheets, this fellow right here, and his brother were asked to ferry this airplane into AirVenture 2008, and it won the grand prize. So he has a very lengthy article that he wrote about that flight into Oshkosh in this beautiful aircraft, November 90 Tango Tango. The story here is about the pilots who bought this airplane later on. There's even a video presentation of this where a father and son bought it. The father contracted cancer and passed away, but the son is still flying the air. Very emotional video. Oh wow. But this airplane is still in service and it's still flying in California and giving rides. But that is one beautiful aircraft. I wish I had have seen it up close. But it is, I don't know how many passengers, probably 10 or 12 it'll hold.
6.
6? Oh, okay. That's probably better. Less responsibility. So, anyway, Mike we exchanged emails and phone numbers. And I got an email right out of the blue from Mike, and he said, would you consider writing the life story of one of our go-to guys in Indiana? He is a DAR, FAA appointed or designated airworthiness representative, which means you're there for life. And he is the guy who signs off on any experimental home-built aircraft in existence in that whole region, and travels all over Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana still at age 85, and does this because they want his name on their certificate. He's that good. But anyway, he said this man is a wealth of stories, and he has a whole complete journal of his life. And I would like to see it produced into a book. And I said, okay, tell him to contact me. And we started emailing back and forth, and suddenly this huge box arrives on my front porch. And I open it, and it's a wealth of notebooks, pictures, and I'm going, oh dear, this is big. But it was his entire life in that box. I said, they trusted me enough to send me their life's pictures. But then he started emailing attachments with his stories. And I started transcribing them into good workable English. He said, I hated school as a kid, and I hated English teachers especially. I went, oh good. This is great. Grammar Nazi's going to be writing your book, and you hate English teachers. Oh good. But they were so thrilled with how it started to go together. And I'm going to show you a little bit of Lowell Ferrand. His home place is in Ligonier, Indiana. He lives right off a grass strip nestled in the cornfields, unless it's a bean year. Then it'll be beans. They have an A-frame home, and that's his hangars, and then there's about 2 other neighbors with hangars. Planes everywhere. It's constantly got planes coming in and going. He is the pioneer of the machine or the engine-powered parachute. He did a study at Notre Dame, and he was the test pilot for this powered parachute. And that's him. So he got his notoriety right there.
So this guy's signing off airplanes and he's doing that?
Well, that's how it started. This was his beginning.
Just in case they don't work real well.
Right. And that's him seated in what they call the Irish Flyer 1, preparing for another flight. He was teased out of Oshkosh the first year. He demonstrated because they wanted fixed wing, ha ha ha. Well, he came back a few years later and won Man and Machine Award or something like that. He won the big award, so they kind of took notice. This is what they call the flying wing. It was experimental back in the 30s, but it never took off. And he said, I don't understand, because that is a sweet flying little airplane. And he flew for museums, so he's flown the warbirds and flew in some air shows. This is at their home. The EAAs got together and presented a monument that's the exact shape of the Luscombe rudder
Real airplane.
with his, well, it's over here, right here.
Yeah.
And that's them posing with their, what he calls the new old Luscombe. And there's a beautiful story, it'll be in the book, I'm not going to tell you all these stories, about that Luscombe. But EAA had a big, big part in buying him, enabling him to get this Luscombe to build. It's a 1941. I got to fly it anyway. So there's the group gathered under the wings. But people kept driving by seeing this monument and thought Lowell had died. So they, oh, I'm so sorry. Tell us why. I'm so sorry that Lowell passed. We just didn't know. And he'd come walking in. I'm not dead. But anyway, he's a good guy. This is Lowell with Paul Poboritsky. You know who he is. He and Paul were instrumental in the beginnings of EAA at Rockford, Illinois. And so they were hard and fast friends, and they're meeting here at the Frascas and Luscombe reunion. They had annual fly-ins, and everybody that had Luscombes in the area came in for that. This is his Tiger Moth, and he quotes, I couldn't afford to buy one, so I built my own. He built that one. And he was very proud of that airplane. This hat has a good story. It's in the book, but it is signed by Chuck Yeager and David Hartman. And it's in reference to a young Eagles flight there at Oshkosh. I'm not telling any of these because you're going to read the book, of course. This guy came in while I was sitting at his table. We had computers out working on the manuscript, and we heard this. He said, airplane, and I said, glitter, and out we went. And this guy came in with his Titan Tornado 2. And so, of course, I had to go look at this weird-looking little outfit. I don't know, have y'all even seen one of these? But anyway, of course, Lowell had to go through every nut, bolt, and everything to make sure it was still together because he had certified it. And it was good, so the guy took off for us and gave us a little runway run and things like that. Now, this is inside Lowell's personal hangar. This is his Luscombe. You notice anything on the wing? Hanging from the wing.
Rag.
Come on.
Right.
Huh?
Rag.
Oh, no, not rags.
Silk scarf?
Nope. Y'all are being too nice.
Ladies' garments.
Ladies' garments, that's right.
Sean wasn't that nice.
The reason behind this, she got so tired of these big old tall guys walking around that airplane in there and whacking their head and getting the Z-shaped scar on their forehead. So she hung these little items on the wing because she said men will notice these. And I couldn't quit laughing. I said, this is so classic. But she changes them once in a while because they get used to those and run into the wing again. So she comes and hangs a fresh line of items out there. But I was, when he opened that hangar, I just went, whoa. You know. And Gay's about this tall, tiny little mosquito of a woman, and just as spunky as she can be. But anyway, we got a kick out of that. But this is when he was getting ready to pull the Luscombe out because he said, want to go fly? And I've been waiting for this moment. So we hopped in, and he yelled clear prop, and up we went. And I just was amazed at the difference of the terrain. We've got lots of trees around here. But there's those big, huge bean fields, and you can see where the circular irrigation goes, and the barns are awesome. Lakes are even more awesome. Lots of sailboats down there, huge yachts even. It was just amazing. I was happy. He was happy. So about midway through the flight out, he said, "You want to fly it?" "Oh, sure." So I got to work the stick and the rudders, and it's the most, I can hear John talking about Luscombe's. It's the smoothest flying little airplane around. And I said I would learn that one in a heartbeat, because there he is with the Luscombe. Recognize it, John? Does it look familiar?
Yep.
This is his 1941 Luscombe. And of course I had to tour his private office. I like this one, Risky Flying Service. That's a good name. But there's his tools, John. He's got them everywhere. Can't imagine an aircraft hangar without thousands of tools. And this, ladies, I like this as a craft idea. Plain nut. And I thought, that'd be good for party favors. But anyway, he has memorabilia all over the house, all over the hangars, everything, and a story behind every piece. It's like, it's categorized, that's his inner sanctum there. And one of his other Luscombes, he had a hat for it. Okay, there's Happy Place #2 in my logbook, and he signed it. And I got my half-hour stick and rudder. When we got turned back around, he said, "Now turn it around, take it home." I went, "Okay, I'm in northern Indiana. Have never flown in northern Indiana." But you start recognizing landmarks on the ground. So I got to do. And I said, "I feel like we're headed back." He said, "Well, this is a strip right over there." And so we started moving in, and finally I said, "I think I would like you to take the airplane now." Because I've never done tail dragger. And I sure didn't want to ground leak this beautiful aircraft. So he took it and took it down, and it wasn't his best landing. It bounced 3 times, and he was going, "Oh," each time. And he said, "I wanted this to be a perfect landing." I said, "I didn't know this was a Cessna," but he talked about that landing all afternoon. And I said, "It's okay," But anyway, this is the book. The manuscript went out yesterday. It's now resting safely in the hands of the publicist in England. But that's the cover. God, me, and those flying machines. He puts God first because we will read this in the book. He had an encounter. It was a very big encounter. Helicopter disintegrated on him in midair. So you can understand the encounter. But it was...
Unsafe at any speed.
Hmm?
Helicopter's unsafe at any speed, same
Well,
quarter.
Well, this one was a bad one. But it was a good outcome. Anyway, God, me, and those flying machines should be hitting the presses in a few weeks, I hope. And, of course, he's gotten his idea that he's going to order himself 100, and he can probably sell 100 very quickly first day up there, for sure. But we're working this, and that would be the end of that story. So we turn off this very hot thing, turn on lights. Because I'm about to burn up. Let's get the little circle thing, there we go. Come on, Jack. Anyway, I'm going to close this out with a few excerpts, a couple shorts from my second book, Settling In at Home in My Sky, because I'm going back to Pilot Family, Pilot Nation. and what it's all about. I look at this room and I say, this is aviation. This is it. Whether, you're sitting in a chair listening to somebody give a presentation, but this is still aviation. We're here to talk about it. We're here to experience it. But once I got certified as a pilot, I had you've heard paradigm shift in the mind. You're not driven anymore. You have a choice. And maybe sometimes you become a very lazy pilot, sometimes you become a gung-ho pilot, but it's your choice now that you're certified. But anyway, and there was some adjusting to do. Your whole line of thinking changes, back to folding clothes, back to cooking meals, and, doing the boring stuff on the ground. But it's quite okay. From one chapter, I'm talking about the art of flying and what all comes with it. I agree with Richard Bach. I'm sure every one of you know who Richard Bach is. In order to keep aviation and aviators alive, there must be books, good fiction books as well as good nonfiction books, telling stories of passion, raw emotion, and intense problem solving in such a way the reader flies with us and returns to start their own adventure. It does our heart well when we hear someone declare they're going to take up flying lessons. May we be there to meet them at the door. And I'm pointing to my good friend here. She was my first non-pilot passenger. And she said, I want to go flying, and I went, oh God. Trust me, when you've got a passenger, you're real diligent about, following all the procedures just right. But once we got back on the ground, she was signing up for flying lessons. Now, she just got her blue card in the mail Thursday. So that's the plastic one, that you wait forever for. So anyway, I feel like a mother who's given birth. I have another friend who texted and he said, I just passed my written. Now I'm getting ready for my check ride. He was my second passenger.
But you haven't killed either one of them.
I haven't killed either one of them yet. But then I met a guy from West Virginia while signing books up there in Oshkosh. He's a college kid, and we talked for an hour. Didn't sell him anything. Well, no, he bought one book. But he texts me every once in a while. Well, I'm signed up for ground school. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. You think my fiance will want to fly? I said, you're going to have to let it grow on her. Because it takes some convincing. But anyway, that was, to me, that's a reward. So I feel like I've had 3 kids this year. And I imagine you all have had the same experience. You've inspired someone and they've gone on with it. One last thing. If I can find it. Okay, I also have a flight plan to make. Okay, Oshkosh has made my pilot nation bigger. I mean, with 569,000 people, your nation just got bigger.
600,000.
Well, 590, or it was close to 600 this year. Anyway, I have to have my accountant help me with numbers. Anyway, so, I said, I also have a flight plan to make. We all have bucket list stuff, which will take us, or need be, it will take us or just me alone, I don't know. But I have this dream of flying to eastern Montana, and with exciting stops and adventures along the way. I spread the sectionals out, draw lines, and tweak the courses and things like that. I've got it in the iPad saved, and I've got it on the GPS ready. And will things trump this plan? Maybe so. That's another thing we learn. Plans get trumped. Health, other things might get in your way. to just file it away for the, that later time. I look out my window even as I'm writing this and think, I could fly today, but I could also land in that open field after all those rains, if I had to. But then that open field is a huge muddy swamp, and it would send my airplane right back to her existence before we got her, upside down, submerged in mud, muck, and water. So things, the weather might be clear up there, but it might be awful down there. I know someone else who can take this flight plan and go with it, though. I know if something happens, I cannot fulfill it. My character, Zoe, can pick it up and carry it farther than I ever could. And either way, it'll be a ride to remember, whether I fly it or I write about it. I'm a soul with a destiny, and I'm at home in my sky. Thank you. I do have copies of Mike's article about his beach, if anyone is interested. I do have books if anyone's interested.
Any questions for Becky?
That's cool. Becky, how many book signings did you actually do at?
I cut it down to 4. The first year I had one going every day, and that nearly killed me.
Okay.
Because, like I said, you truck everything and walk it. One day I logged 12 miles. That's the day I wound up in the clinic with overheating, which I do on a regular basis. I saw that thing about dehydration.
Right.
May I suggest you don't read that? Because I've had it happen in the cockpit, and it's no fun because you lose your mind. You think you're okay, and you lose your mind. So, hydrate in this heat, folks. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
All right.
Let's turn it on. You never did go off, did you?
We'll get Chris up here to work on it.
I think you have to press the flag.
Let's unplug it. Yeah.
Ready?
I hear it.
Here we go. I appreciate Becky taking time. When you get up here and speak in front of a group, even though you probably know everybody, it's still a little unnerving to get up here and tell your life story. So I appreciate you taking time to put all of that together for us. I wanted to piggyback on her presentation on Oshkosh. This was my first year to get to go, and if you've not gone, she said it, but I mean, it is life-changing to get to go up there and see 10,000 some odd airplanes all on the field, over 500,000 people. I'll tell you though, Kent and I flew up there together. We talked about this one day on the grounds. You might as well have called it church camp, because I didn't hear the first foul word between anybody. I only saw 3 cigarettes smoked on the whole grounds. Young guys up there. Everybody was delightful to be around, opening doors, waiting in lines. Even the night that it rained at the night air show, not a grumbled word said. We had to truck it about a mile and a half to get back to the buses. So it's just a good thing to go to. But I wanted to ask our youngest guest, Stephen, you want to come up here? You want to stand there and tell us a little bit about your experience in Oshkosh?
Oh, yeah. All right.
Here is my 4 favorite things I did at Oshkosh 2017 this year. My first one was the air shows. They were awesome, and especially the night air show. They had this little jet with LED lights on the insides and throwing fireworks out the window, so that was awesome. And they had 4 bombers that came in with red and white lights on it, and they did a fantastic show also. And so my second favorite thing was Kid Venture. Kid Venture is a place where kids go in the day. You can take your kids in the day, and this is what I did. I carved a prop, I built a wing rib, and I riveted a little badge.
Hi.
My third favorite thing was the dormitory where we stayed. It was at the University of Wisconsin, and I stayed on the 5th floor, and our room number was 564. And we had an unair-conditioned room, so.
It's there.
And so, well, we were lucky. This guy across the hall had this big powered fan that blew across the hall. So we got a little bit of air. Fourth favorite thing was the Pilot Proficiency Center. Big Dad and Mark Dunn, they went in there and flew a flight simulator. And he did a IFR approach in Long Beach, California. And so he had 15 minutes left, and so he told the instructor that I was really good at landing on aircraft carrier, and there was supposed to be no kids allowed, and so he let me fly a Cessna 172 and landed on an aircraft carrier. That's all I have.
All right.
Cool.
I'll tell you, he didn't brag on himself, but he talked about the kids center. I saw the prop he made. I mean, it was about this long, and I'd have bolted it on an airplane and taken off. I mean, it was really well done. But what did you win?
72-piece tool set, 40-piece socket set, and a little EAA badge.
Wow.
He was loaded down at the end of the day, so this young man did really well. Did you hear his details, calling off room numbers, that sort of thing? So I flew Kent's daughter up with me, and in fact, the first question to him was, Dad, does his airplane fly faster than yours? Yeah, I said, oh, good. We took off a little bit ahead, and we were just landing when he was coming in, and I kept hearing they have a radio in the lobby there, and you could hear all the speakers. I kept hearing, I said, I was pretty sure that was Kent's tail number. And you'd hear all the calls being made. Stephen does all his radio work, and he is excellent at it. So if you ever need a right hand, that young man can do it for you. By the way, Becky, thank you. You just cost me a room on the lake next year. I was happy to stay in the dorms.
Well, honey, I'm telling you, you don't want to do this unair-conditioned stuff in Wisconsin.
Well, I did. In fact, that was stayed in the same dorms as Stephen. Up on the 5th floor, we went to sleep that night. You know, he says unair conditioned. It wasn't horrible. It's about 65, 70 degrees going to sleep. And Kent and I were in the same room, and, you know, we went to sleep at 9:30, 10 o'clock. And somewhere just about dozing off, I just hear this, whoop, 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 whoop. Wake up thinking, man, I'm dreaming. I'm in Galveston, Texas. Seagulls all night long in Wisconsin. Never would have thought it. I got up the next morning and asked about it. Sure enough, all the lakes up there.
Pelicans.
Seagulls have migrated up to Wisconsin, so that was an interesting venture up there.
Hey, one thing you didn't mention, there's no trash on those grounds.
No, you're right.
None.
No trash.
None in the entire area. There's no
They don't
trash.
have any crews picking it up either.
Now,
You pick up behind, if something blows, you pick it up through the trash.
well, but, you know, and this was, Kent mentioned that when we were talking about this, he said, you know, you think about this though, he said, these people are all just like us. He said, they're all pilots, they've all learned detail, they've learned manners, and I'm telling you, the only halfway rude thing I saw that whole week was a young man standing in line just punching the fire out of his buddy, and they were having fun at it. So, it didn't bother me any. We'll move on to